This is episode 46 of the Golf Performance Group podcast. I'm your host, LeBronald Palmer. We also have
JJ Wood.
And we have a special guest with us today. So if you remember last week, we had Mario Carmona on. He talked to us about his experience at playing in the U.S. Open. And then we have a special guest this week who just recently coached a player to his first tour win. So JJ, I'll turn it over to you for the introduction.
All right. So we have Neale Smith, performance coach. Is that still the title you go by?
Yeah, like I'm a golf resource, and I focus mostly in the mental game area. Yeah, and on Cameron's team, I'm the sports psychology consultant or mental game coach. He has a technical coach back in Australia, as well as a few other people that are involved in different areas.
Yeah. So I got to know Neale. I guess it's probably my third year at Pepperdine. I was struggling. A friend from USC by the name of Taylor Wood, same last name. We were playing together, and he just started just started working with Neale and told me I looked like a basket case pretty much. And he knew a guy that his coach set him up with and give him a call. So, I gave it probably another week, and I remember going to qualifying and shooting not good scores. So I called him up, and from there, it really transformed my golf game, but not only my golf game, also kind of my mindset. I mean, the same principles apply in life as they do, in golf. So I'll let him explain. I tell his story all the time to students about, how he started playing golf and going to the PGA Tour. And so I probably exaggerated it in my head a little bit. So I'll let you explain kind of your golf journey or background and how you got to where you're at.
Well, I was late to golf because I was heavily invested in track and field as a teenager. I was quite a good high jumper in Australia, and I got onto our junior national team and had been to the '84 Olympic trials. I was on a good trajectory to at least make the Commonwealth Games team or possibly the Olympic Games team. But I tore my Achilles and rehabbed, and it didn't come back that great. And I kind of fell into golf for something to do. So then I did my undergrad degree in education and sports science, and was always interested in the psych area, as well as training and just all the performance areas in sport, and ended up doing a master's degree in applied sports psychology under Ken Revisa, which was a great experience. And then when I finished that, I turned pro and wanted to give professional golf a crack. So, was playing on a local mini tour in Southern California, and then had one pivotal day on the range where I changed my grip, started playing well, and 2 months later I won Q School and was on the tour.
So how long have you been playing golf until you won the PGA Tour qualifying school?
I dabbled as a teenager, but I probably heavily started practicing when I was 20, and then I was on the tour when I was 26. One interesting thing was like the Hawaiian Open, which was my first tour event, was the 7th 4-round tournament I ever played in my life.
I still have that fact correct. I say that 7th multi-day. I say multi-day tournament of your life.
So here. Yeah. So I was fairly green, to put it lightly. So.
So yeah. What's crazy to hear is just how me and JJ talk about this often on just performance in general. So you were clearly a great athlete. You were track and field, high jump, which is one of the more difficult and strenuous training that you have to go through in track and field. And then you ruptured your Achilles and were still able to transfer your athletic ability from track and field to golf. That's a difficult thing.
So
and I would say I was blessed to be a good athlete. I was good at most sports, and I would say the high jump stuff came quite easily to me, whereas the golf stuff I had to work really hard at. Wow. Both, I would say, technically and attitudinally. I probably had a better attitude and body for high jumping, and I had to work really hard to become a good player.
So what was your? We'll talk about you as a player first. So what was your training style? Did you take a bunch of lessons when you were 20 years old, or did you, how did you go work on it? Because you would have been like a recreational golfer, like most of my students, right?
Like me.
Like,
I was starting to play tournaments. I had a a coach in Sydney that I would see probably once a month. There was a lot of self-practice and self-play. In Australia, one of the things I think that's good for development is that there's less practice and more playing. Most people, especially in developmental phases, play a lot more. Like a lot of courses don't even have a range. They have a net to warm up and then you go play. Like as a kid, you'd often play 36 holes or 45 holes a day. There wasn't a lot of practice, so it was a luxury if your course had a range. But even on the range, like it was hit your own balls, go pick them up. It wasn't like a US range.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but that was motivating to keep your pattern nice and tight, so you didn't have to walk too far.
Yes,
so,
I can only imagine.
Like when I was at Pepperdine, we had the open field we had to hit into.
Right.
When I first met Neale, my driver was everywhere, so I just wouldn't hit it. That wasn't probably a good.
Now, Neale, let's be honest.
I don't want to watch
was JJ really a head case? He tries to talk to me about my mental game. I'm probably the worst attitude on the golf course possible. What was JJ really a mental case when you got him? Because he's all Zen now. He's Zen-like now.
Hey, we're all mental to some degree. It's just where we are on that journey, right?
Yes.
So I'm just way down the road, Brian, for 16 years.
But unfortunately, it's a sliding scale. We can go backwards.
Yeah. That is true.
And I learned that. So when I was at Pepperdine, and I was like, all in on Neale Smith, listening to the visualization CD, doing the worksheets. Then I transferred to OU, and I'm in that's Norman, Oklahoma. Yeah. And so now I'm like a freshman again, because we had 7 incoming freshmen, and I'd go to all their meetings and all that. But I just started, looking for girls and drinking beer and not doing my worksheets or my visualization CD. And my stroke average at OU my last year was like 0.7 of shot or a shot higher than it was the last year at Pepperdine. And I realized towards the end of the year, I was trying to listen to the visualization CD and start to catch up, because I realized I started getting, that antsy anxiety, I guess, on the course again, because I hadn't been working on it. And so I feel like you have to work on it. Now that's all I work on, because it's easy to lay there and, meditate, but it's hard to go hit balls.
Yeah, but JJ, that's a classic story. Like, think about one of the concepts that we teach is the recipe for success. You addressed some of the issues from Pepperdine. You're making good progress. There was a new recipe for success that was going well, but then you forgot some of the ingredients or neglected them. And guess what? Your cake didn't taste that great for a while.
Yes.
And that's part of the goal for any athlete, is figuring out, okay, of the key performance components, what's the key ingredients you need to focus on? How do you bake your cake well so it comes out, in the way that you, how it looks and how it tastes, and it's always interesting for tool players is keeping that recipe together as the context shifts through their life.
So let's talk about some of the tour players. Now, we know that you work with a number, and of course we referenced it as we got started. Cam Davis won his first, PGA Tour event. What was that process working with him? Obviously, he's a high-level athlete, but on the mental side of things, what are some of the support items that you support with, and how do you get your players ready for these big events?
Well, this particular win was interesting because he'd played a lot in the last few months and was getting pretty fried. It probably overplayed, and he doesn't have many 2-week breaks, and he decided to have a 3-week break. Okay. So that was really good for him for a refresh and reset. I went up to Seattle the weekend before the Rocket Mortgage to work with him on the weekend up there. That went well. Then we went over to Detroit together. The preparation went well there. He got off to a good start in the first couple of rounds. And it just kept evolving in the week where he was near the lead most of the week. And and often in professional golf, you can have the good hour or the bad hour. And then he had a really good hour coming in, hold that bunker shot on 17, played 18 beautifully, and then didn't miss a shot in the playoff. So,
that playoff,
winning on tour is a big deal. What's that?
Sorry,
Sorry,
we're just
sorry,
listening.
JJ, repeat that.
I said
Yeah,
both,
no, and then
shots they were hitting were unbelievable in that playoff.
no, he barely missed a shot from 11 onwards the final round because honestly the start of the round was pretty scratchy. He kind of boned it over the green on number one, like 30 yards over the green, and got it up and down, and had a really tight short side on number two and got it up and down. He could have been 2 over through 2 easily, and he scrapped it around honestly through the first 10 holes, but managed it pretty well. But then something clicked in his swing, a feeling, and then he really flushed it for the rest of the day. And the first win is always important for a PGA Tour player. It changes your schedule. You get in a lot more things. Obviously the money's helpful, but it's more about creating a schedule where you can really start to challenge yourself in some of the bigger tournaments against the stronger fields.
Yeah. So Neale, I wanted to ask, I have 2 main questions, and I know we have limited time because you're out there in Chicago, but one, I know you're involved with the Australian national team, or you have been, and I have a varsity group here at the Golf Academy for high school players, and I model it basically, what you kind of introduced me to, performance style training and coaching. They may have an instructor somewhere else, or they may work with me, but we focus more on skills and drills and playing. We play 9 holes at least once a week in the group because we only meet twice. But how would you say the Australian, I guess, I don't know if it'd be PGA of America or PGA of Australia, or what the coaches are being taught in Australia, how does that differ from the traditional PGA of America model where everyone's kind of programmed to take 1-hour golf lessons and work 90% pretty much on technique versus the other components? I have your performance pie up right now, so I'll show you that, Brian, after the thing. But how I'd say US PGA training is more, it's changing now, but it's 90% technical and physical versus how would you say Australians are kind of brought up in their training programs?
Well, it's difficult to lump all Australian coaching and coaches into one category. So it's not a centralized program. There is a Golf Australia program that is at a national level, but there's a lot of flexibility within states and within coaches to coach the way that you see fit. So there's not a national model that you must do A, B, or C. But I think I would say in general, it's probably a little bit more holistic approach in that there's more attention on mental nutrition, the other key performance areas other than just technique and or physical training. There's probably a blend of that. One of the beauties of Australian amateur golf is the number of high quality tournaments the kids get to play at a reasonable cost. One of the beauties of Australian golf is, like, I used to be a junior member at my course for $20 a year. So it's very accessible. There's lots of role models that play high level golf around the world. And most junior tournaments you could play for $10 or $20. So it's the accessibility, I think, at a really low level to get started, I think is important. And then Australia has a great sporting culture in general, not just in golf, and they pride themselves in excellence in sport, and golf's just one of the areas that follows along down there. And there's, I think, good pride in being good coaches in Australia. So, I think it's a combination of things. Golf Australia's done a nice job of helping in talent identification, player development, and then player opportunities. Because one of the areas that a lot of national programs struggle at is that transition from strong amateurs to young touring pros. And they've done a good job of supporting people when they leave the national team and or the state teams and trying to find status on major tours around the world, because that's a gap for nearly virtually all players. Because like say in the US system, the college system is very strong, but then once you leave that, you've got to find status. And some players can get lost in that 1 to 3 years, or even longer sometimes. And if they've come from highly structured high school and or college golf programs, they can kind of lose their way a little bit when they're on their own sometimes. And, some of the mini tour stuff can be a bit of a grind.
Yeah. So I know when I was a college coach, I was recruiting a kid named Clay Fiedler, and I went out and watched the national championship. And I know you had worked with him. I'm not sure if you still do. What is it? Pepperdine was so deep, and that they had Clay Fiedler in that 3 spot. And just going off the rankings of Golf Stat, they had like 7 or 8 guys, ranked really high, and he wasn't ranked. What is he, like a bulldog? What type of player is he? Because obviously they had him in the lineup, and I watched his matches, and he was just like fearless. And I mean, you could tell he wasn't up to Austin Eckroat's, a talent level, but he dominated, And so, can you kind of explain, or maybe there's nothing, but I was trying to explain to my girlfriend, like, he must be just that fighting mentality, never gives up, because he's playing 3-man where they had a couple guys sitting at home that were, really, really good players.
Yeah, well, I'm still helping Clay, and he's had a really good couple months. Like, he went to that Form Tour qualifying a few months ago and won that. He was really starting, because he struggled a little bit last year, and this year has improved his skills and back onto some better mindset stuff. But also, like, I think the stuff at national championships was an indication of the kind of player he can be, So he's played a lot of good golf in his life already. That was not a surprise to me.
Yeah, he's won a couple of goals, didn't he?
Yeah, but also, he's worked on his mental game for 7 or 8 years now.
Yeah, from a young age in high school, which.
Yeah, so I think that it's a great time to learn those skills and those concepts and the mindset stuff that goes along with that. And it also gives you a healthier perspective on the ups and downs in golf. It's going to happen. Like this, everyone has cycles in their game, even for the best players. So he rode through the down cycle last year pretty well, and came out this year stronger. And and obviously you earn confidence, I think, in golf. And like when you consistently perform and do well, you really earn that level of confidence that you really grow belief in your skills and your ability to be a good competitor. Because there's that. You can look at a mini tour event and see lots of people with very high skills. It's the application of those skills, which we know are it's not just technical, it's mental, physical, strategic, and there's also the it factor of like people that just like being good competitors, like competition and are good competitors.
Yeah. So Neale, we know you got to get out of here. So maybe before we have you go, is there any tips that you would give an amateur? We know you work with pros, but is there any tip maybe that you would give with amateur? And if you have social media or anything like that, we definitely want to share with our audience where people may be able to follow you. And JJ, it looks like you got something.
Yeah, I was gonna add on to that. So the same principles that make up a tour player, let's say they own their game, they have a good mindset. What are those key variables would you say that, the recreational player overlooks that tour players do that they could kind of emulate, I guess?
Well, I mean, I see it in my club all the time. The guy comes from work, guy or gal comes from work, they're stressed from work. They race to the first tee and they can't believe they didn't drive it 300 down the middle.
Yeah, it's amazing
so maybe set some expectations of getting to the course maybe 20 minutes early and maybe trying a warm up, and maybe considering some practice.
So when say they have an hour to go to the range, like LeBronald Palmer here does, and they're so, because they take technique lessons and they just want to bang balls. What would you advise them to do if they have an hour to, get better at the course?
Oh, well, look, obviously when your skills are low, you've got to improve your skill set, right? So part of taking lessons and technical development is part of that. But once you start to grow those skills, it's the application of that helps you become a better player. And as we know, the practice environment in golf is not that great at transferring to playing the game. And in most practice environments, there's too much blocked same practice and not enough random or variable practice. So I would say a good use of an hour would be 20 minutes of technique work, 20 minutes of touch work, and 20 minutes of full routine work pretending you're playing. That's a simple model, but that would be a good application of time.
Yeah, no, that's good.
No, well, thank you again. So do you have a social media or anything like that you'd like to share? Or
No, I've made a conscious decision to do no social media.
Nice,
which is probably an odd choice, but it's comfortable. I use Facebook to remember friends' birthdays, but that's about it. And I don't do Instagram or anything else like that. So
that's what I need to do.
No one's ever heard about. Sometimes I'll Google them when people want to, after I tell a story. And I was on his testimonials. He's worked with all these PGA Tour winners. I was like, see how big time I'm at the top there on the testimonial list.
Take him off your testimonial.
I might be off now, but
I did have a website, but I've let it lapse. I need to get that going again as a way for people to find me. So that's processperformance.info, and that'll be back up again in the next couple months.
Nice. Well, clearly you're valuable to the people you work with and a great athlete in your own right. So we appreciate you spending this, 15, 20 minutes with us this morning to share your story. Congrats on the recent win within your group of players that you work with, because that's great also. And anything you want to leave the people with before we get out of here?
Yes. 2 core concepts: know thyself, get thy shit together.
I'm going to use that now.
The last one is what I think.
Yeah. Know thyself. Okay, I have my junior group in about an hour and a half. They'll like that one.
Know thyself, and it's like an onion. There's layers of that, right?
Yes.
So, because often players are looking for the new shiny thing. I don't teach new shiny things. I have core concepts I believe in, but we've got to go deeper within those concepts.
Yeah.
And the get thy shit together is like, once you know what the key performance ingredients are, it's like, are you prepared to do the work in those areas for a long time?
Exactly. Well, that's been episode 46 of the Golf Performance Group podcast. If you like what you heard, follow us on Instagram at golf_pod. You can also follow us on YouTube at Golf Performance Group, or JJ at JJ Wood Golf, and me at LeBronald Palmer. It's LeBron and Arnold Palmer put together. Thanks so much.